Welcome back to the On the Ramp podcast. Hello, boys.
Hello.
This is a first.
This is a first.
Foursome. Yeah.
A foursome with the three of us.
Yeah, we've never done that before.
And added another.
So, Mark, you're in for it today because you got, all three of us
Peppering you.
peppering you, ganging up on you.
Yeah.
So today we are with Mark Field from the IAAF. Which IAAF is it?
If you come to our dinner in December, you'll realise it's not the Athletics Federation.
Oh, okay. Right, before we're going to speak about athletics today. Yeah, right.
So, Mark, who are you? Tell us about yourself. What's your role?
Okay, so I'm Mark Field, Chief Executive of the Independent Automotive Aftermarket Federation, but IAAF for short. And we lobby on behalf of the parts industry. So we're a 95-year-old trade federation, kind of going through a process of modernisation at the moment. We're reinventing ourselves and looking to really broaden ourselves to not just the parts suppliers and distributors that we work with, but also independent garages as well.
Mm-hmm. How did, if just to give an intro to everybody to, that's the IAAF, but who are you? How did you get into this?
Into the motor industry.
Into the motor industry or into this role?
Well,
Because you're not 95 years old, are you?
I'm not 95. I feel like it sometimes. There's some long days, and I'm not very good at anything to do with cars either. So I was speaking to a college last week, and I said I don't know anything about cars. If you put me downstairs, you'd be dialing 99 and ready to press a third number pretty soon after. But no, I was at university. I wanted to be a war reporter, so I wanted to write about
A what reporter?
A war reporter.
Oh, as you do.
Conflict reporting. So I did my dissertation on all this interesting things, and then out of character, I applied for a job at Haymarket Publishing. It was in the careers book at the time, and this magazine came through called Cat Magazine, which was about the aftermarket. First question: what's the aftermarket? This is going back 25 years. So went for the interview, got the job, and literally the first thing I did was actually interview the chief executive then of what was the IAAF, which was called ADF, Automotive Distribution Federation. And that job as a reporter on that trade magazine involved going out and seeing garages, distributors, suppliers. And I thought about this recently as to why that is the case, that I got so... Actually, I fell in love with this market, in this trade, and that you got to see businesses and how they operate. And I think it was probably because my background was that my mum and dad, which are a big sort of part of my life, my dad was a painter and decorator, and he grafted all the time, and he was always it always felt like he was making a difference. And I think when you see the businesses that I was interviewing and the businesses I was telling their story of, they were making a difference. They have to show up every day.
Reminiscence of,
so I was a big sort of, I really sort of connected with the people in the industry, and it is a real people industry. So I progressed through Haymarket, and then went into PR, then went into communications within a trading group, buying group, as you would know. Then started my own business 15 years ago in marketing, PR and digital. And the then chief executive of IAAF was retiring, and they said, would you like to apply for this role? And I said, I've got a job, don't need a second job. My wife Lindsay said, don't do anything like this. So I just ignored her and went for the job.
Don't need a second job until somebody tells me not to get a second job.
Yes, exactly. It was interesting when you talked about, Matt Cleaveley was talking about how he asked Claire, could he move 100 miles away? And would she move with him? I had the same conversation with Lindsay when we first started out 25 years ago. The difference is Claire said yes to Matt, Lindsay said no to me. So, but yeah, that became that. I said I'd only do the IAAF role for 2 years, and here I am 4 years in.
Fair play.
So yeah, big fan of the aftermarket.
Enjoying it?
Love it. Best job.
Full on. So are you full time in IAAF now?
Full time in IAAF. The media business, which is run by a guy called Tom Addis, they're off doing weird and wonderful things, and I'm happy for them that they're so passionate about that. But IAAF is a dominant part of my life.
Awesome. So IAAF then. So from an independent, the majority of the listeners are from the independent garage world.
Yep.
The IAAF historically has been more about supply chain, hasn't it?
Yes, more about suppliers, manufacturers, parts suppliers, manufacturers, and then motor factors. And for a number of years, and when I was became chief executive, you sort of saw that you could actually make that change, that we need to talk more to garages. Our suppliers want to talk to garages. Distributors are always talking to garages. But if we can bridge that link, then what you have then is you have a stronger proposition to take forward to motorists. And that helps in terms of right to repair campaigns and things that we're working on there. So in addition to that, what you get is you get an opportunity where you can look to raise standards, because it only matters. A garage is only as good as his distributor as their supplier. So if you bring the supply chain closer together, you exchange so many good ideas.
So it's enabling that conversation between supplier or manufacturer, distributor, and independent garage.
100%.
At that point, yeah. Okay. You are fresh out of the BBC studio. So unlike normally, this episode is going to be released very quickly. Mm-hmm. So this is actually current. And normally we're about 8 weeks behind, but we're going to work our best to get this one out. So just yesterday, the day before,
yesterday morning, it started the night before, they asked me to meet them at a cafe in Solihull to talk about tariffs, which was a kind of a new area for everybody, really, because President Trump has put these tariffs in. But they asked us to come in. So was myself and Steve from GSF, and we lent our 30 seconds of opinion on these things. And I think it's interesting because even if you don't export directly to the US, you can be affected.
Yeah, I think us as independent repairers aren't probably going to directly feel it, but up through the chain are definitely feeling it, aren't they?
It has a knock-on effect to everybody. I think one of the concerns is that you look at these things from when they happen, and businesses think, well, we'll have to make some sweeping adjustments. We'll have to set up perhaps in other territories. We could lose people. We could lose skills. There's a lot we could use. A lot we could lose. Sorry, but I think it is changing on a day-to-day basis.
And is this from an independent garage point of view, basically going to drive up the cost price of parts, which then obviously goes on to the customer anyway? But is there any other?
Inevitably, yes.
Yeah.
I can't see it being any other way in which that it's going to drive costs up, and then it's up. Garages then have to sort of obviously work with their distributors, absorb that, and then it's going to have to pass it on to the motorist.
Do you know, like, out of the whole part spend, what percentage is coming from America? Because a lot's from Europe, isn't it? Anyway, so do you know?
It's difficult, and as I was told the other day, to be indirectly affected, a product could start off in China, goes to America to be worked on.
Yeah.
Okay, so that relationship is now 104% or 125%.
Today. Yeah, who knows in a week?
Who knows? Worse off. Then you need that part back in the UK to sell it. That means that you then have to, if there is a retaliatory tariff in place from the UK, could be 10%, it's another cost.
So basically, part that you think is coming from China, if it's touching America for some part of its journey, then it's going to...
It's a real worrying time, and the number of phone calls just before this podcast, they are increasing, and it goes into a lot of things about our market, that the aftermarket is never exempt. It will always affect us.
It's never not just exempt, it's always sort of just going, and you're still getting charged even if everybody else isn't.
So where are the tariffs right now with Automotive?
The last was President Trump paused all tariffs for 90 days. So that's of the 9th of April. But automotive tariffs still remain.
So paused all but automotive?
Yeah. So we work with our equivalent in Washington, D.C., which is the Auto Care Association, a huge trade association. And they've helped us with understanding, because when these tariffs get announced, you think that they are for parts that are going to go on vehicle production, in vehicle production. So what about replacement parts? Because they don't really make the distinction, it's all parts. So they're giving me a list of what they believe to be tariffs on replacement parts.
So there's not even a definitive list. It's a list that they've assumed.
It's a grey area, but for now, let's just 125%.
By the time the podcasts go out, it'll be very different, I believe.
It's just bonkers, isn't it?
It feels like obviously the main ambition is to take manufacturing back to its origin state, but then the knock-on effect of that hasn't been considered or
But
discussed.
the problem with that is when you do have countries like China, you've got lower-priced labour. So if they
and superior manufacturing technology.
Efficiencies,
Yeah.
superior efficiencies.
Yeah.
I think you quickly realise that the issue is probably outside of our control, but also probably not about us and about a relationship between one country and another.
And I think
to be fair,
for UK manufacturing, JLR are really affected, aren't they,
I think
with this?
because they've paused exports to the US, all vehicle manufacturers are going to be affected.
So they literally paused that because of this.
Yes, they've
So-
paused their, which they do 20% at least to the US.
It's not an insignificant number, is it?
No.
It's
And
a lot of money.
I live in, I'm from sort of the Longbridge area, which is where they had Rover and Leyland before that. And a lot of those workers, whilst early in their careers, are Jaguar Land Rover workers. So, yeah, big issues.
Well, we'll see. We'll see when this is released, which will be about a week today. It'll probably
And it
Change
kind of makes,
it,
I
yeah.
kind of get why it's being done. It sort of makes sense to a certain degree, doesn't it? You know,
But it's the way in which he does it.
yeah, yeah.
We talk politicians saying they're acting in short term. This is very short term. This is one change after another, day after day, and that's how it's so quick moving. So when I was asked yesterday about Brexit, because it does feel a bit like that, you had a lead time. You kind of knew what was coming, the rules of the game. This is
It's short, but it's for a long-term
think
goal, isn't it?
There's the longer term plan. There's a longer term plan there, but I feel like when you're so early in your term, you can afford to be a bit more risk adverse because he's got the next 3 years to make up for it.
and a third term if you listen to
Yeah. Just give myself a third term.
Yeah, exactly. But going back to the UK point of view and independent garages, we are always at pains to say that the automotive industry extends beyond a vehicle of 3 years. There is this whole aftermarket, independent garages, distributors and suppliers that service, maintain and repair these vehicles. We are the unsung heroes. So when we're talking to government, we're really trying to push that message out there. And we look after...
Do you think the government respect that on a whole?
No,
You don't really.
I think that when we say that we look after and maintain 76% of the 34 million vehicles on UK roads, it hits, but you work with different civil
You got highways,
servants and departments with block exemption, which we won't necessarily go into too much detail, but the CMA is very interested in understanding how the aftermarket is interpreting that legislation, competition law, how we can support each other. So there's a good dialogue there. We need the same dialogue within the other government departments.
Well, I guess we know that perception is an issue. So why would the governments have a better perception if it's an issue? They've probably had no involvement in the industry, have they? Those sort of people in government. So
If a vehicle manufacturer in the UK was to lose 2,000 people as a result of these tariffs, we'd see it on Sky News, wouldn't we?
yeah,
If we lose 2,000 people across the independent aftermarket, across 30,000 independent garages,
Yeah, it wouldn't be news.
wouldn't be news.
Do you think this is because the franchise dealer and all that world is backed up by these big manufacturers on a global scale? They've just got more weight.
yeah, the global.
I think, and proximity, because they're where they are in the supply chain. So we need to work together. We're the independent side, but we only exist because of vehicle manufacturers.
Yeah,
And I think vice versa, to be fair, because the aftermarket is in this sweet spot of how we engineer problems away. So there's a lot that we can contribute. But it is that, and obviously they have deep pockets for very large lobbying. So the IAAF does really punch above its weight in terms of getting its message out there. And in terms of legislation, we were very effective actually in a post-Brexit era that we got better definitions and clarity on our motor vehicle block exemption than what the EU did. And we work with organisations within the EU to sort of support each other there as well. So it's good.
Do many of your members supply into dealerships?
I would say through the parts programs, you'd probably have supplier members that have relationships with dealerships or vehicle manufacturers.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because it is very much a spider's web, isn't it? You think
It's all interconnected, isn't it?
linear supply chain, supplier, distributor, garage, consumer. There are all these different legs that go off it, and I think that distributors could easily supply into dealers, franchised or other.
So if the focus is now like on more on independence at the sort of like closest to the consumer end, what's the viewpoint to growing members into the IAAF at the minute? Like how are you achieving it, and how substantially has it grown since you've took over?
So we never had a garage membership before. Well, we did, but it was a failure.
Right.
Going back 2010, I think it was. And what we have now is we offer the garages as an association with IAAF, which is free of charge and free at the point of entry. So we were quite active at pushing that out there to garages, and we have about 3,500 that are kind of registered. We're doing a piece of work at the moment to really sort of understand where we can offer garages value, because that's what it's about. When I became chief executive, I wanted to look at the whole membership and say, well, yes, it's great to be part of IAAF, but I want to go further than that. I want to look at how we can offer you value for money and how we can offer you a membership experience that is not just different, but is really beneficial to your business.
Have you got any ideas then of what that might look like?
I think from independent garages, from our point of view, from what we're looking at, is there are many different facets, because there are many different types of independent garage. If you want to, yes, you can talk about different businesses and how they are approaching what they're doing. So I'm working with garages and looking at what they are after, and it could be something from training, and this is more soft skill training, because I have an abundance of technical expertise through the supplier members that we can offer, but it might be more sort of soft skill training and actually saying, listen, how we communicate to get to motorists is key. On the other side of that, there might be more an intelligence service where we talk about data and trends, and also as a federation, I don't think we've necessarily supported businesses enough on areas such as national insurance, tariffs even, all these business things, because we are seeing and living through this time where garages are now becoming more business focused than ever before. So what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do, is to look at how I can cut through. There's a lot of concepts out there in the market. There's a lot of, there's other associations where the IAAF can really find its way.
Be different.
And support everyone else. And I think that the key thing for that is that when you look at businesses and we say, we talked about it earlier on, but how I fix cars. No, you don't. That's a part of it. But what you do is you keep families moving, you keep businesses moving, you help people see loved ones. You have to show up every day, and you make a hell of a difference. And I think what happens when you do that is that you leave people better off than when they first arrived.
And it's one of those industries, isn't it?
It's making me emotional, that was.
And it contributes so much to the economy, doesn't it? If you look at the...
We believe we're working on a piece of work, and we believe the aftermarket is getting towards being the bigger net contributor than vehicle production. But
do you know what the employment stats are from independent versus franchise? Is independent a bigger market?
I think in terms of franchise, yes, we would be. But
Okay.
in terms of the vehicle production side, you have the figure of about 350,000. That's everybody, and a 92% contribution, billion pound contribution to the economy. And I think the
Where is that in the scale of sectors? Is that a lot?
I think we will be in the top. Actually, I wouldn't know. I'm not an economist in that one, but I think we would be sort of up there. The aftermarket, we believe, is 56 billion.
Okay.
So we are the bigger contributor. So when you're trying to get people into the market, and I know I don't want to make Nathan too emotional, but it's reframing, and that's part of our work with garages. We're trying to reframe what it means to be in this sector.
It's got to be up there with construction. And,
construction.
If you think look around, there's houses and cars and vans. Isn't it? So,
yeah. On the Ramp is very proudly sponsored by Castrol and the race group from Certus Energy. Our own business, Lindley's Auto Centre, has been using Castrol products via the race group for at least 10 years. We get our own account manager. They help us set up the oil portfolios across the branches, And there's also someone to ring if we've got any technical queries or general queries. And having that relationship with the account manager, I think, is really important. We get dual branded workwear. So just like what I'm wearing now, we get this free for all members of staff. We get to use the Castrol brand across our entire business. So things like building signage, websites, general marketing, etc. And working with a globally recognized brand like Castrol, I believe, can really elevate your own brand. There's a rewards platform. So for every purchase, we accumulate points that we can redeem against certain items on this reward platform, which is pretty cool. And then there's an integration via our garage management software that allows us to actually see the exact oil product code that should be used in that vehicle, which in today's world and the complexities of oil is actually really helpful. So if you want to learn more about how Castrol can help elevate your business and you want to learn more about how the race group can help you, then please click on the link in the description below. Thank you.
And I think it's the perception that we have that we need to change, because the differences that the garages and the technicians are making, that's where we want to be sort of really promoting the different roles that you can enjoy, and the businesses that they're so widespread, they're such a permanent they are a permanent fixture of reassurance for motorists in a world full of absolute carnage.
And I think that when you work in the sector, you don't appreciate that.
I was just thinking when I said construction, I guess it's a similar thing with a builder. You know, what's the perception of a builder? Yeah. And without a builder, without a garage, you know, we've got nothing.
The world doesn't exist, does it?
Yeah.
Technicians are always, and everyone's always amazed that I guess I'm enthusiastic about this industry. It comes across, I'm sure it does. I'm in awe. I mean, I'm a big disappointment to my dad that myself and my brother, who's a psychiatric nurse, and I do something with computers and cars that aren't manual. We're not manually, focused. And I'm in absolute awe of people. You could tell me the flux capacitor's gone on my car, and I'd go, yeah, I saw that on a DeLorean in Back to the Future, and I believe you. But you can't underestimate how much the motorist and their family puts the trust into an independent garage. So we're trying to get people into the trade, and we're trying to say to them, or we should be saying to them, you can be bigger than the sum of your parts here if you really sort of look at what you're offering, because you are so important.
But lots of people talk about it.
Exactly.
It's been an ongoing conversation, and we're all guilty of speaking the words that you've just said.
Yep.
But what's actually being done? Who's actually changing the game?
Changing the perception?
Yeah, like what's actually happening to change the perception?
Short answer? Well, I'll give you the long answer as well. The short answer is you are. Because the IAAF has moved into different areas where we were very linear in our parts lobbying. Probably through the work that we've done, we've contributed just that little bit more into areas. I don't call it a skills gap. It's a skills challenge. There are people. We just aren't onboarding them correctly. We're not looking after them correctly. We're going through, I think, this revolution now with independent garages who are travelling more, going to events. They are changing the game with independent garages, and the standards and the level of professionalism that you get. And again, I've said this to you before about the number of garages that are interested in data and how they run their business. That's providing an employment opportunity for people to come into and say, this is a business I want to be part of.
It's funny because we've seen, Nathan, you're a big part to do with this, to be honest with you, is we're seeing a lot of people employ someone from marketing, young as well. So people are coming from college or from uni straight into a garage in a full-time marketing role.
Yeah,
who'd have thought that 20 years ago? That
it's exactly what you just said, though.
Who'd have thought it 5 years ago?
I think it's what we've all thought, probably individually and within our own conversations. We've got to reframe the whole scenario. Like you're taking something that's we've been banging it one way for so long, and it's obviously not sinking or changing the perception anyway. We have to reframe, reposition this industry. The
perception must have come from, like, a big part of it must be salaries, what you can earn. So you think kind of 10 years ago, it was never seen as a job to kind of go and earn lots of money, was it? And I think that's probably
the opposite.
Then
I think the perception is the opposite.
You think you need to be a solicitor, a lawyer, or a doctor, or whatever. Whereas there's no reason why now or in the future that a technician, it should be seen as a 60k plus salary in today's sort of money, shouldn't it? I guess that does drive that initial perception, doesn't it? The money.
And I think if we did plot the average salary against the average technician salary, I do believe that the growth rate of a technician's salary is
way
above,
above, yeah.
is way above the
The
average.
growth rate will be
Growth
Like,
rate,
in the
yeah,
last, in the last, and I remember, say 5-6 years ago, I bet an average might have been what 24-25 grand. Now it's kind of like late 30s.
Yeah.
You are a general practitioner when you go into a garage. I've got a problem. The car is sick. It's the same sort of doctor sort of analogy. I'm in a heightened state of emotion. We talked about this on your other podcast where it was the front of house, how you deal with that. And I think what we have to do is support garages, because when you talk about who's changing the perceptions, I think we've left independent garages, we as in the wider industry, to solve this problem of perception, where our motor factors and our suppliers and the whole supply chain have to be looking at saying, right, we want to raise our standards with you because we want to help independent garages communicate to motorists better. And when you look at that, going back to that sort of consumer that's going in there, they need to be reassured that they're in the right place and they've got access to the right technology and the right parts, which is what the IAAF is doing, and then we'll solve your problem. And that's what you are, you're problem solvers. And we have to make sure the whole supply chain is aware of that.
So that it's all around, isn't it? The perception. I guess a lot of the perception comes from people's interaction with a garage.
You've got like an entry perception,
You have,
and then
yeah.
you've got a customer perception, and in the past, it's like everyone's mentioned on EastEnders that
Under the arches.
Under the arches, that's the perception.
That is EastEnders, Coronation Street.
And walking in there,
No, Minty in EastEnders.
It was both of them.
Minty and Phil.
But you wouldn't walk into somewhere like that and expect you don't get that. The branding isn't doesn't make you feel premium, does it?
But then the knock-on effect to that, if they've got a young kid and they go to some shithole garage,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
are you going to think,
Straight in
I
with swear
just,
words.
just want my kid to go? How else do you describe it?
You don't know.
But that is changing, isn't there? I think there are.
But this is where it's like, is this why it feels so difficult to change the perception? Because you've mentioned it's money. Money, and I agree with you. I think fundamentally the money hasn't been
That's
enough,
the
not
entry
enough.
perception. People getting into
Yeah.
it.
But how do you pay more money? We've got to run a better business, to your point.
Yep.
You're running a business, you're not fixing cars.
But for garages to provide the perception as well as that, it needs the support of second order effect from the suppliers to make sure they're getting all the right information in. And if there's blockage is in that pipeline.
It's all about the dialogue and about how you, like you said, you bring that market closer together up the top end, so suppliers, distributors, garages. And you then look at how, and again, not everyone wants this. When you talk about, EVs and or the change in vehicle part, like you did with Quentin back in sort of May time last year, not everybody's looking 2-3 years down the line. There's 30,000 independents. We're not all going to be looking at leaving the industry better than when we first arrived. I have the view that the majority of us do. And I think that when you look at that perception, it's just how you, like you said, you reframe it, you change your approach because you'll be a better business. And I think that's where, and there's a cost to that because you have to invest.
Investment, yeah.
And the other day I went to a coffee shop, went around this thing called a drive-through. After speaking to a speaker, they said, go to the next window. I had to go round the back of the coffee shop. I thought it was like doing some sort of dodgy deal. £4.55 for a coffee. I had to call my mum afterwards and said, Mum, £4.55 for this cup of coffee.
It's been robbed.
She said,
robbed.
Was it magic coffee beans? I said, they had to drive me round the back like I was some sort of, doing some sort of dodgy transaction. And they handed this coffee chalice to me and it just tasted average. And I'm thinking, I'm going to go back there again.
That's you, Alex, that, isn't it? Every day.
I am. But it's we won't name the brand because other coffee brands are available.
You know what they do that's really clever though? They make you pay on the app.
Yes.
So you don't even see the price. It's like, you're paying on the app today. Yeah. Bleep. And then you get a notification on your bank, topped up your credit. It's like you don't even see what it costs. It's just incredible.
My point is the reframing of things where, and you see this, you see it on the forums as well, where garages, and I think I saw it particularly post-COVID, that garages and again, general term, but they'd started to sort of look at their business a bit more and said, I want to change my business. I want to be more profitable. I want to be a different business and how we transact, because the customers coming in and they're not perhaps appreciating our profession and what we do, we have to educate them. We have to explain to them this, because they could be spending,
You know what I'm worried about though is that we're in circles of lots of very good garages, and the people listening to this podcast might run very good garages. But when you speak about 30,000 garages,
We haven't got that kind of reach yet.
but if you did have that reach, would you have that influence? Would you be able to?
Like you said, a lot of people have different points of journeys in their businesses, isn't there? So
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I don't know. It's
I don't believe you're going to hit everybody.
And do you think there's as many people coming into the trade, whether it's starting a business, joining a business, than they are leaving the industry?
I think from our experience, and we started something called these enrichment days, where we spoke to colleges about bringing them into different automotive businesses. So again, not just independent garages, but distributors, suppliers, where they've got these training academies. Open it up. So this college, which was close to where I live, I'd say about 80% of the students had checked out before they'd even checked in. So they were already thinking about leaving.
so they signed up
The
to an
industry.
automotive,
Yeah.
and now that so the retention on the actual courses isn't good enough.
It's the retention on
the
the
interest isn't there.
I think people are looking at leaving even before they've really got into it. That's no different.
So hang on a minute. These are students that have picked automotive
Yep.
and want to leave before they've even got to the industry.
Before they've even got to the industry.
It'd be interesting to see the data on other sectors, though, because I imagine the attention span of young children these days is they would hop and skip anyway. So it's good to. I imagine that a lot of people would join automotive then leave.
But that for me is an opportunity, because then it's not necessarily we need to get more people to think about
no,
automotive.
we've got enough
Yeah,
people.
you've
We're
got
not really,
them.
yeah, we're just not converting.
I don't see it as a
Perception.
skills gap. I see it as a skills challenge.
Yeah.
And they are. It's different on motorcycle, interestingly enough, because they're much more engaged,
Passionate.
passionate.
Yeah.
So what they're looking at is they're probably speaking to friends and or peers, and they're saying, well, I'm working in this retail environment and I'm earning this money. And they're looking at that. And it's really interesting because, A, they knew brands. They had a view on brands at a very early age in terms of the automotive aftermarket,
Yeah.
which was good. But also, if we can get them out into this marketplace and say to colleges, but also students, there's this whole supply chain that wants to talk to you, that wants to engage with you. Talk about trade events. 20 years ago, we used to say we don't want students at our events. They're inflating the numbers. Now, if you take Automechanika coming up in June, we've got this whole area called Motivate, which is purely designed for people to come into the aftermarket.
So this is a place where colleges are going to be able to bring these students that may be dropping out
Yeah.
to come and actually see the bigger picture.
See it in a different light.
See the vision.
And it's a fantastic opportunity, but it's also, go back to your point, what are we doing as a trade? I think we are doing a lot more. We should always be glass half full on this,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I really think there's substance in knowing what that dropout rate is, because that's way easier to fix than trying to attract people in.
But it's just looking after your current customers rather
Yeah,
than
but they're in
It
the
is,
funnel,
yeah,
aren't
yeah.
they? You know?
But
Yeah.
how like if you were, I mean, you've done it on your NAF, didn't you? Go to a college recently? Did you do a presentation?
Well, it was the same college that me and Mark have both gone to. So yeah, went to
Which college?
Wolverhampton College. So they've had a massive refurb. Spent like 3 or 8 million. They've spent millions
Yep.
there, and it's probably the most impressive student setup I've seen. And it was actually a college that I used to go to when I was a kid. So it was quite a good sort of like 360 moment to sort of go.
Is it
back
an
to.
automotive college? Or
No,
is
no, it's just
everything?
it's an everything college, but they've just built a full automotive campus where they sort of cover like all areas, and they've got a really impressive workshop. They've just built an EV workshop as well. So I went there just on spec because the one of the head of automotive there, Stephanie Jones, reached out to me. She's like, "Love to do something with you." And I think she's just on it with everyone at the minute. An amazing woman. So I went there. I was like, "Look, I used to come to college here. I'd love to just come and have a look around." She's like, "Yeah, come down." So I just went down. Ended up an hour later, I'm talking to the kids, all the level 3s, just going, "Come be a tyre fitter." Only joking. And obviously just went through.
Perception is a problem.
Yeah, I'm the problem. Went through the opportunities and just reframing certain things within it, and it was just like off the cuff. I practiced nothing, and then I got asked to go back around again. But in between me going back around again last week to judge their I call it the Tri-Wizards College Championships for automotive. You went to Wolverhampton as well, didn't you? And what was your thoughts?
I thought it was brilliant, and I think you now have these facilities that are up there. You know, they are fantastic, and you going to see them is part of how we help that retention. Because, and I don't think this is too dissimilar from other courses that people do. You know, and I always thought of myself as different when I was becoming a reporter back in the day, that I actually did a course in journalism. You know, that was the thing. But when you speak to my local college, it was a case of what's your dropout rate? It was about 70 to 80%, which was a phenomenal number.
We've got to get on this.
Fair, we had on one of the podcasts, we spoke about apprenticeships, and someone from a college commented saying they'd like to, because
they did.
Because my views of the apprenticeship wasn't kind of great. I know I didn't have I did manufacture training at the same time as going to the college, and I learned way more on the manufacture training than I did with the college course. When we sort of discussed this, but I think this was long ago.
And do you know what the problem is? Who the problem is? It's us. Because when they come out of college, we don't onboard them correctly.
Yeah.
And we had our garage section meeting recently. It was actually the one before that Alex attended, and it quickly became apparent. Not necessarily the people in that room, but it was like, it's us. We're the problem.
I wonder if that's something a college could help with then.
It was
the onboarding.
Shane Charles, South Hampshire College Group, reached out to us. If that dropout rate is that high, I'd love to. If you are in college listening to this, or you know someone, just get in touch and tell us what that dropout rate is, because
that's going to vary via college, but it's
might.
Certainly, the one in Bromsgrove that I was speaking to, it was a high dropout rate.
At what point? After they finished
After they finished.
So there's a missing cog there, isn't there, between finishing and getting into.
But why would they drop out at that point? Is it
if it's
disengagement?
If it's onboarding with the garage,
yeah.
Because you can see that, can't you? Like, level 3, come on, bring your toolbox down.
I think a lot of colleges as well are having their curriculum maybe demonised, or there's just no communication between garages at the time. So for me at the minute is I've got 2 voluntary just coming in one day a week or one day every other week, just coming in from Wolverhampton College. So young lady called Grace, she's doing amazing. She's absolutely flying.
Grace.
She's doing really well. She's actually found herself in loads of circles. So I think she's met Louise Baker. So she's mixing at the minute, and it's amazing to see. And she's got a really bright future ahead of her. And then from my last visit, where I was judging the tyre fitting part of the Tri-Wizards. I met a young lad on level 1 called Mohammed, and he was in there today. Texted me at about 8:15, 20 to 8. He's like, "Good morning, I've reported to Gav," and I'm straight in there, ready to go. And I was like, "This is what is actually needed."
Did you do automotive at that college?
No. I actually didn't do anything automotive. I was either selling sweets or I was doing sports BTEC. But if I say
you just went to college to sell sweets.
No, I'd finished my sweet selling career at that point. Then I was,
what type of sweets?
Whatever you wanted, mate. Whatever you wanted. I was like pulling it out. I could do anything. But no, automotive. It was at a different part of the campus, and it was really tired by that time. And then when they brought Stephanie in, they was like, "Look, we're investing all this money." And then they've just built this amazing campus.
And the best thing about, I mean, that college, and Stephanie spoke to me, said, "What's the problem? Is it the curriculum?" And I'm sure there are things that need to be resolved, but just going back on that point, onboarding, and they do these careers event, and they go to the local employers, which are independent garages, and they're not looking necessarily, because work experience is a huge opportunity that they want to get more people in, but we're kind of onboarding people in the area that is least supported, because independent garages and small businesses, I know it is tough to bring on a apprentice or to offer work experience, because we're just not geared sometimes that way to do that.
Probably the good ones might be choosing the manufacturers over the independents, because they're properly set up for it with their own.
Do the manufacturers have a presence at Wolverhampton College?
So JLR were in there recently for an open day. It's the third time, So there's had an open day, and JLR had a stand. Bentley were there. So they've got a bit of a presence. Stu from Valio was in. Do you know Stu Lynch from Valio? So one of the technical guys at Valio, he was there. To be honest, if I was going to give anyone any advice, I'd take a look at Wolverhampton's model, because at the moment they are right up above anyone that I've ever seen. Not because I've seen everyone, but for an example that as a business owner loves. how they're communicating with myself as a garage owner and a few others, the tutors, they're ex-technicians who are tutoring, and they're really relatable to the kids, and they're pairing it up really nice.
Linking it all together.
Yeah, and it just works. It's such a great little ecosystem, and I can go into the college now and I'll be familiar, and I think that's really important.
And I think it might be proximity, it might be the area, but you have manufacturers, you have engineering businesses in the Wolverhampton area who I attended with, and they take on 8 apprentices a year. Yeah. So you might not necessarily have this focus on vehicle repair yet, but you move into a different business, you go back to it, and that's what you want. You want to keep
exactly
people
what you
in the
said.
trade.
Just keep people moving around the industry. Yeah. Don't move them out of the sector. Just keep them in the sector. Just move them into roles until they find their place.
We don't want to lose them. We've got this whole supply chain, really sophisticated supply chain, and distributors are part of that, motor factors and suppliers and everything that they offer and the technology they offer. We've got to make sure that when they join the automotive aftermarket, when they come out of an education environment or a learning environment, that's not the end of the learning. They need to be aware of what's available to them.
Have you heard of Apprenticeship Central?
No.
Have you?
I met Eleanor at one tech event recently. Really like the concept.
That's a really cool concept.
Yeah, really cool.
So her business essentially bridges the gap between the college and the garage, and acts as like more of a hand-holding service for the apprentice, because it would increase that retention rate if you've got someone who really looks after that journey. Because you're right.
What are they called?
Apprenticeship Central. Eleanor Barnes, add her on LinkedIn. She's very
really
impressive business, very impressive ambitions, and I do think that if that retention rate is and it's never even crossed my mind.
No.
When I think back to when I went to college, we started with like 20 people and 7 people finished the course. Like the dropout rate was ridiculous. People just not turning up. We never had any of that engagement. We never had anyone external come in. Never spoke to a garage.
I think I'm going to name her. You've probably seen her at certain events. My daughter Emma is in that real bracket where you're excited. She's 17 in a month's time, so she's going to be hitting the roads as well. I'm excited about the opportunity she's got available to her, but also nervous that she'll take none of them. And she'll drift because nothing's
grabbed her.
Nothing's compelling enough.
The attention spans is and that's nothing's. And I'm like,
I mean, and that's not to demonise kids. I think they've just been overworked. They've got so many options now. We're so digital. No one's ever been as digital as these kids at the minute. So they're overwhelmed with the amount of options that they've got. No one's really putting the attention in to make it appealing to them. Just go, do you want to come here?
It's hard to see the vision, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is difficult because we have to understand that employee. We have to understand the business, and I do this thing, Carpool Aftermarket, where I go around and interview people, and someone said, what would your level of investment be? What's going to happen in the next 5 years? And my answer to that is actually for people to invest in themselves. So when we talk about business owners and everything that you face, to invest in yourself personally as well as the actual business, because there's a lot of challenges that every individual faces that runs a business, and we need to look after those. We need to make sure that we are able to communicate effectively and onboard people from that have got completely different perspectives to us, different challenges, different work ethics, and I think that's a real big part of how because there is a real disconnect, and I think we've just got to make sure that is as again about bringing the supply chain closer together.
So Automechanika and Motivate then, just wanted to, because we did to come over that. I think that, so for people that don't know, I'm assuming most people know what Automechanika is. It's
not assume. Let's tell people.
Okay, the automotive's largest.
Yeah, it's the biggest event
expo.
in the UK.
Yeah.
It happens every 2
in
years.
Birmingham every 2 years. If you're only going to go to one event just to see what's in the trade, that's probably the one to go to come up to speed as quick as you can in all areas, tooling, etc. Lots of great presentations there as well, technical and business.
Huge. To me, I was thinking about this earlier on. It should be seen as a celebration of our trade, because not only can you meet with, and we have distributors, members who now bring garages with them, so it's brilliant. They're meeting suppliers. The level of debate is rising within the trade, which is great. That's what you want. We're a people industry. for 3 days in Birmingham. We bring everybody together. We've got our garage awards there, which will be hopefully the largest it's ever been. And I think it's a real coming together of an industry that desperately needs to come together and share ideas, share opinions. And I think what you've seen in the last however many years is that garages are really up for this, are really up for travelling more, and they want to know that they're not alone in running a business, that they can exchange these ideas.
When you speak to garages now, like this networking and what's available, it's everyone talks about, don't they? And it opens their eyes.
Yeah, and I do think that we are a little bit at risk of it's the people we know, but not the people we don't know. Do you know what I mean?
There's more out there.
It's all of those out there, yeah. And it's like when you actually look at the number of garages that are there, and then the number of attendees of Automechanika overall as a percentage of garages, it's not enough.
Yeah, no.
Even though it's the biggest.
I guess if those people don't want to, you're not going to change that.
No,
are you? You know?
no, that's very true.
It's that perspective. And I think one of the things I've picked up on, particularly as the IAAF has moved more into garages, and we have our garage awards, a number of independent garages have turned to me and said, I want other people to win this award. I want other garages. And that's really refreshing. It might be because they're not competing with a garage up in Scotland as they are down in Devon, for example. But they really want the whole, as you said, the garages that are invested are actually trying. And that's where the change comes back in terms of what we're doing as a federation, but what the market is doing we want everybody to benefit, because our conversations with independent garages are that we don't want to be brought down in a perception sense by others. We want to make sure we are all, might be at different levels and at different paces, moving forward.
Direction of travel is the same, isn't
Massively.
it?
All ships rise together sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, Automechanika, there's this motivate thing.
Yes.
So again, I think, again, we spoke earlier about, so who's actually doing anything about this, about the skill challenge. Yep. I feel like the concept of motivate has real potential to actually make a difference on a fundamental level.
Automechanika Birmingham and Motivate is probably that great opportunity for people who, if we take about the fact retention rate and students, the shop window of our trade. So they're going to meet all different parts of the supply chain, and it's how they are. It could be their first impression of us as a motor trade. So we have to make it a very good one and a long-lasting one. And we want to make sure that, and there are a number of exhibitors or companies who are involved, and they're going to be looking at engaging with young people and new people in so many different ways. And I think the key thing is, and I talk about this a lot, you remember the Armed Forces adverts where they said there's 2,000 careers in the motor trade. Yeah. Which one are you going to choose? Yeah. In the Armed Forces. We could do the same.
Yeah, it's true. I was about to say that. It's do people go into, if you look at a finance director or an accountant in the industry, are they going into it to say, I want to be an accountant in the motor trade? Or are they kind of getting their qualification?
I bet no one's ever...
And then ending up in the motor trade.
In the history of conversations,
right.
no one's ever said
whereas
that.
the armed forces, you're going in because I want to be in the armed forces and I'm going to do this.
But this is where I think back to when I was at college. If someone actually came in, I mean, I was in a family business, so I was scruff on my neck, dragged into it. So I was never exiting. But if someone had come in and said, the opportunity isn't just being a tech. You could be a workshop controller. You could be front of house. You could be a manager. You could go into marketing, finance.
Or if you start as a technician, this is a potential path.
Absolutely. And how many people do we know have been on that path?
Yeah, well,
started as a tech and then worked their way through.
There are people of managing directors and owners or chief executives or whatever, and they have started on that Saturday role. And the biggest problem that we have, I think, is that we have this mindset that we just need to, I've got 3 children. We almost have this automatic, don't join the motor trade. That's been there for centuries, not centuries, but that's been there for a long, back to my parents' days, which was about the motor trade perception. You fell into it. We've got to make sure that we have people saying, you can have a great career in the motor trade.
Yeah, I bet most people have fallen into it, haven't they?
Yeah.
And if you had that, again, someone saying this is the vision, this is potential, you can end up running your own business. And
I mean, some of the best people that we've had experiences with probably as business owners as people that have come from outside the industry as well. Like we've had some like great front of house staff that have come without any motor trade experience within the family, and they've come in and they've learnt so much off the back of it and gone on further.
Some of the best independent motor factors that I know, actually one of the best, if not the best, his passion isn't cars. His passion isn't even automotive parts. His passion is business. And he has grown phenomenally. And it's all about service, all about availability.
So if you can find some younger people that have entrepreneurial people passionate about business and kind of go, well, why don't you sort of start here? And then this business is good because of, think of the car park there, the marketing and
the opportunities.
What I'm saying is, it's an easier business from like a marketing point of view because the reach is huge, isn't it? You know, everyone's driving a car, so that's a potential customer.
My passion is storytelling, and that's when we go back to the beginning, which is speaking to garages and say, right, tell me, everyone's got a story to tell. If you can do that, you will really encourage people to join.
You can make a good snippet of all the podcasts, like little clips of everyone's sort of story, and that could be then sent to the colleges.
So you think the £4.55 cup of coffee should be in
So with Motivate then, how do people attend that? If you're in college, listen to this. If you know someone in college, if you're a college tutor, if you're a business owner with multiple young employees,
but if you're a parent and want to get
or a parent or whatever,
I think if they visit the Automechanika Birmingham website, they can register, free registration for the event. So and it's not just obviously students at certain levels of, like you said, parents can bring children. My daughter, who's doing a sports and fitness course, and she or armed forces course, she will come into that environment as well and have a look at the different careers that you can enjoy. So visit the Automechanika Birmingham website.
Okay, that sounds
love that.
Pretty exciting. I think that is there anything else you want to discuss?
I love the idea that we started touching on that there's 3,500 registered members in the IAAF. How many of those are active at the moment? Do you see like really engaged? Because I think that from my own thought as well, we're obviously IAAF registered, but like as active as I could be is like I definitely haven't. And probably now I'm understanding the ecosystem much more. It makes you think actually I feel like, speaking openly, Mark feels like one of the good guys. So it's like, and the IAAF, and I love the mission, and this is what it's all about, and this is why I do what I do. This is why we sit here.
That's how I feel about the IAAF as well.
Yeah. So how obviously how many people are active, and we need to obviously extend that olive branch out to other businesses and other garage owners to be a part of this community, not because we need members, just because it's like, look, we've got to do this together because it'll happen quicker.
Back to the lobbying piece and the college piece. Like,
I guess it's all the problem with it being free as well, isn't it? Is that you don't engage as much.
And we're looking at not changing that, but it will always be free at the point of entry, but how we look at offering value to members. Now, when we are talking to government, and one of the key benefits to having independent garages support the federation is that they look at us and say, okay, you are representative of the whole supply chain, which is what you want. And I think when you look at the federation, there is a work that we need to do, not perfect, where exactly what we've done with suppliers who are very invested in the IAAF, distributors also, we need that level with independent garages. And our service offering might be different, but it's how we can engage and support your business. And that's a real big, and it's an ongoing thing.
So is that something that's been actively worked on right now then?
Actively worked on right now.
How do people join today?
So they can visit our website, iaaf.co.uk, and there's a form there they can just simply fill in and we'll log details. And at that level, we start to engage in terms of information going out. And in terms of that kind of information, that's great. And we produce a number of e-bulletins and we send information out. But we want to hear from garages as well, because we get lots of different calls from garages who are struggling with access to data, access to repair and maintenance information. We are there for you.
How easy is it for someone to just submit that data or a frustration or whatever? How would they go about that?
it's various different ways, Nathan, in terms of we get phone calls every day, but also we get emails, and then that helps us when we're talking to government departments, but also when we're talking to vehicle manufacturers, who Neil Pattimore, our technical director, is very effective at raising these issues and saying you have to comply by this and you have to do this. We will escalate this. We will seek legal support to support the independent aftermarket. And I think we're very good as a market at being very outbound. Lots of information coming down, and suppliers and distributors and even IAAF at pushing out information. A key aspect of our federation life is listening. We need more of that.
Do any of the manufacturers see the importance of the independents having access to this data to keep the faith in the brands?
I think it was mentioned in your last podcast about it being a revenue stream. There are various different. Some manufacturers are worse than others. Some manufacturers are better than others. Some have never been asked for this information, so it's a new thing. Some see it as lucrative revenue streams. I think we are working, and this is where we have to have this dialogue, that the work that we've done to support independent garages and the whole supply chain means that there needs to be a level of compliance. And when it comes to renewing this competition law, we have to make sure that we have evidence to support that, A, this is working. If there's an infringement, we champion it, we fix it, we solve that problem, and we can be there. There are things coming down the road, cybersecurity, all these different things that Neil is spending a lot of time on, and that's before we go into things like MOT consultations, because we're doing one at the moment with Northern Ireland. So we are a much broader church than we've ever been, but in answer to your question, it's an ongoing battle, I think, and it's confusing, because when somebody calls us up, just for one example, is that said, someone has said I can't access the digital service record. Isn't that an infringement of block exemption? Yes, you can access the digital service record, or should be able to. It's not block exemption, it's type approval. So there's all these different things that...
Like I say, if you're a good BMW specialist and you look after BMW customers, they're going to return back to that brand.
That's what you mentioned that before, and that's the ironic thing, isn't it?
Whereas if BMW customers or any, what brand you're in, if you have because everyone's going to, that's assuming there's always going to be a dropout from manufacturer, but which there will be. You're not going to have 5, 6, 7, 8 year cars, and they can't cope with it anyway. Because
look at the example you've got of your car now.
Yeah.
You're having a nightmare with the dealers.
Yeah.
And it's in warranty. And if it was out of warranty and you had a specialist close to you...
I kind of wish almost it was out of warranty so we could fix it ourselves.
But it was. But then you might consider going back. But the experience you've had now, would you rebuy that car?
Yeah.
Oh.
Unique outlier, obviously.
It's all right when you got 7 cars. It's not a problem, is it?
And this creates an experience for the motorist that would automatically put you... is an independent garage able to fix this vehicle? Now, in terms of competition law, they should be able to work on that vehicle from the moment it's, driven out
in
of
the market.
dealership. In the market. So
you could argue a re-switch on manufacturer would try and support the aftermarket to kind of keep, because it's almost like rather than fighting a war, sort of support it to a degree.
They're in a difficult position, though, aren't they? It's like they've got to ring fence their after sales or service.
Well, they've got to feed the franchise, haven't they? That's the thing. And the problem is that we were just discussing earlier is that the franchises aren't as robust as they would have been before. They're losing staff. They're not retaining customers.
There's a fair few closed as well.
Yeah, and this is the argument. Is like, well, don't withhold it from the people that actually they're trying to keep your brands on the road. Don't withhold it from them, because if you're doing a bad enough job on your side, don't make it an us problem.
We had a conversation, or Neil did, with a vehicle manufacturer and said, would your main dealer have to wait 8 months for this piece of equipment? And challenged it. Within a few days, it had arrived. We can't do that all the time because it's difficult. You have to know that. Yeah. But it's really about championing that independent garage and that distributor.
So if someone's got a genuine problem where it could be trying to buy a tool or get a part or information, and they literally are hitting a roadblock and can't get any further, they can call you guys and
Yeah, that's a key part of the work that we do. And again, that whole connecting point around that is the garage and the perception that they're giving out to the consumer. what they can do with basically working on that vehicle. We're making sure that vehicles stay within or can go within the aftermarket. And again, it's not about saying that, yes, I'm a huge fan of the automotive aftermarket, but it's about consumer choice. And that's what it should always be about.
Yeah.
You have a choice.
That was the research Quinton did recently, wasn't it? Where it was customers want choice.
Yes. And that's...
Don't back them into a corner.
No.
And I think that's where the independent aftermarket wins. But, and we don't say fair choice, we always say equal choice. Because...
Isn't it funny? We talk about consumers like although we're not consumers so much in this industry, but we're consumers in every other industry, and we want exactly the same things that any other consumer wants in this industry when we're in another sector. If I want a kitchen, I don't want to be told to buy a particular kitchen. I want the choice of whatever kitchen I want.
If you've got a Bosch boiler at home and you're going to get serviced by Bosch, it's going to annoy you, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to use who I want to use.
Yeah.
I think, and maybe we'll go down the EV route, but I think part of that issue around EV, electric vehicles, is telling people what to do. And I hark back to I'm not being political now, but there was a by-election in Uxbridge, I think, because Boris Johnson had left, and everything was going the way of Labour, and the Tories won. And it was all to do with the ULEZ, because you're telling people what to do. And I think when you do that, it's a very difficult place to be in.
People want to rebel.
It's human instinct to
because they feel like there's a different play at hand. So it's like, I'll rebel against that because I don't know about the play that I don't know
and that's
yet.
been part of the EV problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's been thrown down people's throats. They're kind of going, well, no.
I think you
Something
saw,
stinks here.
Yeah.
you saw it a few years ago. It kind of became a very emotional argument rather than a rational argument, and it was all around sort of Christmas time, where probably out of COVID now, people were leaving London and getting to the service stations, and there were queues at the South Mim services. And I think, well, this isn't what it's what I expected, and things like this. So we are lobbying actively for a technology neutral approach, which is to drive a vehicle that best suits your lifestyle. Is there more work to do on the combustion engine? Is there more developing? Hydrogen, EV, all these different things. And I think that the aftermarket will always find its way. We're a resilient industry.
That's a better experience for the customer. Because I remember when the EV thing first came out, customers were going to showrooms and they were being sort of guided towards the EV vehicles because they had targets to hit, whereas it should be a consultation. Like, what do you do? How do you drive? There's an EV, there's a hybrid, there's a mild hybrid, and going through that would be a much better experience if those pressures weren't there.
You do 50,000 miles a year, there's a diesel over here.
Yeah.
It's so obvious, isn't it?
And I think that's another bit, an area where, I know you spoke about it before, but we are living through this time where it's the oldest vehicle park it's ever been. And again, you have all this political commentary and all this thing about being ready for EVs and all this, and then your garages and are seeing nothing but combustion engine, and they are so busy that actually, how can you shift that mindset? It's really difficult for them. And then you're saying, well, I'm really busy, and will you take on the apprenticeship? Well, I haven't really got the time to onboard these and things like this. So
it's a proper bottleneck, isn't it?
It's really a fascinating, but you've got to be positive about this, because these are nice problems to have, in the sense that the industry, in my mind, is flourishing.
It's evolving, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think going back on the skills side and back to what we started with Motivate and Automechanika, we are raising the standards and perceptions of the motor trade. And colleges like Wolverhampton are doing that.
I think that's probably the thing. There's a lot more happening than what people will see, and we probably need to talk and publicise things more. And the things that are happening that you guys are doing, obviously some amazing things at IAAF, that it'd be great for people to see those small wins, that tool that nobody could have got, but you made it happen. That seeing those things happen just means that just because I didn't solve my problem straight away, that lots of other ones did, so I should continue thinking positively to solve more problems. And
this goes back to your very first episode, where you said, what was the why? Which was about the fact that we need more positivity in this trade. And Alex and I will often share stories where we say, oh, look, here's a negative story about our industry again.
Naming no names.
What's the point?
You know who you are.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
What's the point? I know there's good and bad.
Yeah, this mechanic's gone to jail for this, and it's just
Get out.
bonkers. Yeah, just go away.
Get out of my face.
I think
Yeah.
the bigger school of thought on that, or bigger school of of thinking around that, is that we're all individuals. We've all got our own pressures going on. We need to be supporting people in our trade and wrapping our arms around them and offering, and this was a big thing at IAAF as well with what we do in terms of mental health and how we support not just businesses but individuals. And I think when you look at it from a different point of view and you change the perception, you say, well, actually, this industry looks after me as well. And I think that we need to be much better at being much more positive, because compared to where we've come, and unfortunately I've been in the trade for 25 years now. Say unfortunately, I mean it's because of the the years.
Because you're getting old.
Because I'm getting old.
Yeah.
We've come a hell of a long way.
I'd imagine the positivity there isn't the trade; it's the people. If they were
Huge
if
people.
they were in a different sector, there still be it's maybe it's the people rather than the actual industry. if that makes
But
sense.
it's people who create the perception.
Yeah, what I'm saying is people. A lot of people just generally glass half empty.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm glass half. Well, three quarters
Glass
full.
half full,
3/4
yeah.
But you need that, and you need these, and I used it in our December event, which was, it's refreshing. That's just one word. That there are more independent garages, and it's growing, who want to leave the industry better than when they first arrived into it. That is having an effect. It goes back to Alex's question, how we bring people in.
It does feel like that, doesn't it?
If you look at the innovation of the industry compared to other industries, it's going to be leaps above. Look at buildings are still bricks and mortar, and
Well, I mean,
like
we've
the
had
actual-
to really, haven't we, because of the ever-changing variables
Yeah,
that
but
we
that's what I
face.
mean. That's what makes it more exciting, because
Yeah.
innovation drives new ideas and better people, and any business needs to innovate, doesn't it? And it's the most innovative, probably, industry, I'd imagine.
It huge,
Certainly, yeah.
Other
one
than
of them.
software and tech sort of stuff, probably, but
Yeah.
It's hugely entrepreneurial, and I see that more now in garages, in the garage sector than there's ever been. In the last-
entrepreneurs like change and innovation. So it's
There is that.
It's
Yeah.
feeding and fueling that, isn't it? So
Are you guys going to have a stand at Automechanika?
So we, IAAF will occupy the Right to Repair Lounge, and that is a big campaign that we've worked on in the past. Right to Repair has been about a specific problem, so around sort of trying to lobby for certain
exemption.
changes, block exemption. But for me, it's an ongoing story, because if we can promote the industry in our right to repair, I believe it doesn't solve a number of problems, but helps contribute to solving problems such as standards, such as skills, such as the quality in the market and perception. So we will have the Right to Repair Lounge, which sort of / VIP lounge at Automechanika, and we'll also have a presence in Motivate as well.
Okay, so people can come and speak to you guys.
Yes,
If they come to Automechanika.
we will be around, and fresh out of a half marathon, so I'll let you know how I go on.
Good luck.
And yeah, we've got our IAAF, first time we've ever done a football tournament, so 4 days later. So
Are you playing?
yes,
So straight from a half marathon straight into it. Is it 5-a-side?
5-a-side. So
You're going to be blowing.
once Aston Villa win the FA Cup,
Oh,
half
don't-
marathon, then into,
We'll see you at the final. Hopefully. Fingers
See ya.
crossed. Let's wrap up there. I want to, before we do wrap up, I'm really interested in colleges reaching out to us, because I really want to know what this dropout rate is
Yep.
across the country, because we do want to bring new people to consider the automotive trade. But actually, is the quicker fix just increasing retention at
Yep.
colleges? And if it is, then things like garages getting involved, like you have, Nath, like Tim's been into college.
Friendship Central.
Apprenticeship Central, what Eleanor's doing.
I think there's something here with us to do something with that.
Well, but get in touch, contact us,
yeah.
and let's see if we can do something. Because if it is, I mean, I'd like to go into a college and have a chat.
Yeah, I keep meaning to pick that up with our local college as well.
like
Yeah.
I said, I don't think it's a skills gap. That might be an unpopular thing to say. I think it's a challenge.
It's just engaging. It's just
opportunity.
engaging with people, and
It's getting the vision, isn't it? Again,
I found that bit. I don't know if you guys knew that retention.
No, I don't know. No,
Don't
never
know.
even thought about it. To be honest, no.
Garages can fix that.
You just assume it's not enough people wanting to even
Exactly,
join the
but if it's
cause.
people who are falling out of love with it before they've been given a chance to fall in love with it, because there is no engagement.
The only touch point that they've had is someone that hasn't really engaged with them at the point of, I can go further with this.
Yeah.
But we have you mentioned about garages solving that. It's not the garage problem just to solve that.
No, it's the industry's accountability. We have to take complete accountability for all parts of it, but we need to skill the touch point, which often is the garage, to sort of be able to communicate what a future looks like for them.
And when you speak to colleges and they have these careers evenings with all the best intentions, I believe it's about bringing more of the distributors and suppliers in as well.
But I think literally for a business owner, I try and say this with the most amount of self-awareness when I'm talking to the kids that I have, is like, look, I have no idea whether you're going to work for me at any point, for a long time, for whatever time it is, but I'm going to commit to making sure that I give you everything that I can for you to go further forward within this. And I have no other ambition behind that, like, just because I can't commit to employing everyone all the time. So I might as well just give you everything, and hopefully that's enough value for you then to reflect positively on me. That will be enough for me then. I'll leave that there. And I feel like kids don't really receive that. When they start to receive that consistently, they'll start to go, actually, there's not a deeper play here. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to, there's no deeper play. We just want to get more people into an industry. My tyre fitting role that I have available might not be for that person, but if it means that's the entry point for them to get that, as well as loads of emotional intelligence and experience to go with it, then we'll move them on happily and know that we've got another good person in the industry.
It's setting off all those sparks everywhere.
But we're so set on just going, oh, I want a tyre fitter, so you must be a tyre fitter.
Yeah.
And then that kid goes, I don't want to be a tyre fitter. But we're forcing square pegs into round holes sometimes.
What was it? I think it was a Motivate conversation we had, and I'm sure a tyre retailer said that when they advertised the term tyre fitter over tyre technician, when they advertised for tyre technicians, they got 50% less applicants than when they
We've
went
seen
to
some
tyre
of like
fitter.
fast fit technician versus service technician or whatever. Or it just made me think as well. Like, we're looking for an accounts person at the minute. I've never even thought to go look for an accounts apprentice. It's always, you just think technician apprentice. So if we tried front of house, and that's quite hard to, because I think
There's a big gap, isn't there? There's a big gap.
It was hard to understand what that role.
I've broke it down different, and we spoke about it. But I've got somebody that started for new sales, so his job is new sales. Don't have to repair the car once it's in the flow, but we have service controllers, and you are literally a service controller. You're not a service advisor. You're a service controller. You're dealing with lots of moving parts in lots of areas, but it's really hard. I just think we had previously in past years we've tried to force people into places, and that's turned people off. And I think that's a massive turn off, because when we're forced into an EV place or something like that as consumers, which we are in every other aspect of our lives, we forget that these people might be coming into the industry are currently consumers. We're trying to make them people that produce within this industry, but they're still consumers at that point.
If we can find a way where we onboard people to improve that retention, even perhaps at school level, not just because that's where we need to probably get to, but even when they're at colleges, for them to be aware that this whole automotive supply chain of which the IAAF represents is available to them, is interested in them and wants to engage with them, I think you then get a boost.
It won't even be in their peripheral vision.
Yeah.
No. That won't at all. And that's something that can
and I don't think it's in
be
the
fixed.
peripheral vision of business owners at the minute knowing you exist. So it can't be with students. So people with experience don't know what it does. Mark, thank you very much.
Well, you've got to jump on a train, mate.
Yeah.
I know we've been chatting for...
That's okay.
Yeah, but no,
thank you.
Thank
Congratulations
you so much.
on your podcast, and I think you're 1 year in at the moment. So congratulations to all of you and all the thought-provoking things that you are
Appreciate you coming
promoting.
on, even though it took you nearly a year to get here. Man in demand. Really good chat. Really lots of really interesting things going on. Learned a lot, especially around the college and retention rate. I think that's quite optimistic.
How can people reach out to you? LinkedIn? Is that a good place
LinkedIn's
to-
always good. I'm always on LinkedIn talking about all different, bit like this podcast where we talk to a lot of different subjects. LinkedIn's always pretty good.
Amazing.
Cool.
Wicked.
Brilliant.
Right,
Thank you.
we'll leave it there
Thank
then.
you very
Right.
much.
Yes, thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Cheers.
guys. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.